Hey Defenders, welcome back. In this video, I want to show you how we can take Ping Castle, a tool that gives you immediate high signal view into your Active Directory security posture, and then turn those into structured events that we can also ingest into our SIEM stack and that your SOC team can actually use. So let's first understand what Ping Castle actually is and why it can be a useful tool within our security toolkit. So Ping Castle is a free tool that assesses your Active Directory configuration and it looks for weaknesses based on a security model and a big rule set. It then produces a health check score and tells you things like, are you using weaker authentication settings like in TLM v1? Are privileged accounts configured safely? Are there security controls you'd expect in a modern Active Directory environment that aren't yet enabled? And with Active Directory still being the center of gravity in most environments, if an attacker can compromise an Active Directory server, they own identity, authentication, authorization, and eventually the entire domain. So, having a fast way to assess weaknesses is very valuable. And Ping Castle is the tool that gives us immediate lists of improvement areas that are usually extremely relevant to real world Active Directory attacks. So, how do we actually run Ping Castle? Well, on their GitHub repo, which I will link to in the description below, if we go into their releases tab, we will want to download this zip file. And we'll want to download this zip file onto a Windows host that has joined or is a part of the domain that we're looking to analyze. So in this particular video, I'm just going to run it on my Active Directory server itself. And to actually run Ping Castle, now that I've downloaded the zip file, I will go ahead and just extract. And Ping Castle makes it really easy to run. They give us a executable that we will be able to run and will actually run and generate our report. So there's no, at least in my experience with Ping Castle, there's nothing that we need to install on our Windows endpoint. But if you are having any trouble, then they do link to their documentation on their website here as well. So with that file extracted, here we see that we have our Ping Castle executable. So what I can go ahead and do is just go ahead and double click this, and this will open up a interactive menu that I can select from. So in this video, what I'm interested in is producing a health check score, which is essentially scoring the risk of a domain. You can see they add a little blurb here as to this is the main functionality of Ping Castle. It will produce a report for us, which will then give us an overview of our Active Directory security. So let's go ahead and run a health check score. I'm going to go ahead and select yes to run in privilege mode. Since I am an administrator on this machine, I'm logged in as the administrator account. I don't suspect I run into any issues when launching this. So here we'll go ahead and select yes. Here it's going to ask us to specify the domain or server to investigate. So if I'm running this on a Windows server that's maybe not a part of my domain for whatever reason, and you want to point it to a domain server, I believe Ping Castle supports that as well. But since I'm just running this locally on the AD server itself, I'm just going to leave it to the default. And this is the only domain within my environment here. So we can see Ping Castle has automatically picked that up as well, which is helpful. So there, I'll just let it run on its own. And here it's going to, Ping Castle is now generating our report based on our Active Directory configuration, which, given that this is just a lab environment with a lot of the defaults in place, I suspect to maybe not have the best score. But here it looks like the scan has now been completed. So we see that the task perform analyst has been completed, and we can now press any key to terminate the program. And now what we have generated is now this HTML file. So if we open up this HTML file, and this here is the report that Ping Castle generated against our given domain, which was lab.sockfortress.local. So here we can see that our risk level is 85 out of 100. So as expected, there's certainly some work that would need to be done with this environment. It also breaks down into various categories. So stale objects, privileged accounts, trust concerns between two Active Directories, and anomalies. So it also categorizes its findings up in this nice little report for us. It breaks the categories down even further into individual topics or risks. You also get a little overview as to how many rules are associated with this particular risk and a little bit of details as to what this risk is actually detailing to us. And so continue to scroll down here. Here we get into the various risks themselves. So here we see stale objects, 31 out of 100. And if I select one of these rules, so we can see that the stale objects rule has detailed 11 rules that matched out of a total of 56. And these are rules that are all bundled within Ping Castle, the executable itself, which is nice because now it comes preloaded with all of these rules. And I can select these rules here and we get some details as to the explanation of what exactly this means. What I really like here is that it's telling us why they flagged this as a higher risk. And also, we see here the number of points. And these points are used to calculate our total risk level, which was 85 out of 100. So all of these, so they also looks like they rank various findings based on this point system here. So ones with a higher amount of points will certainly want to make sure that we target first. And they also link to some other further documentation as well. So you'll have full insight into not only what risk your Active Directory currently faces, but also why it's important to patch this said risk and how to actually address said risk. Really awesome that we're getting all this wealth of information from a very simple and easy to use tool that is Pingcastle. Here we see our section for privileged accounts, and I won't go through all of this report. I'll let you guys explore your own reports, but I really like that these reports can be easily accessed via this HTML file, which will get generated within the same folder of your Pingcastle executable. So this is great, but what if we want to get those events into our SIEM stack? Well, Pingcastle is also generating this XML document with very similar results to what we're seeing in our HTML. And what we can do is actually with a PowerShell script, run through these findings, add them to our active response.log file, which our Wazuh agent is collecting and sending into our Wazuh manager. Maybe create dashboards on them or create specific alerts or whatever it is that we're looking to do with that data. Maybe some automation. Once we get the data into the SIEM stack, then really the possibilities are pretty endless. So what we'll first need to do is get our Wazuh infrastructure ready for these new events. So I first need to create a new rules file. So if I go onto our Wazuh rules repo, which is a public repository for you guys, which I will also link to in the description below. Now, if I go into the Pingcastle folder, you'll notice two files here. One being our rules file, so our XML file that we'll put on our Wazuh manager, and then the other being our PowerShell script. So let's first actually add our rules file to our Wazuh manager. So I'll go ahead and just copy the contents of this and go onto my Wazuh manager. I'm going to select add new rules file. And I had 700,400 dash incastle.xml. And I'll go ahead and paste in those results, save, and then restart the Wazuh manager. And while the Wazuh manager is restarting, let's also go ahead and grab our findings.ps1 file. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this file, and I'm going to put this on the same server that ran Pingcastle, which is, in my case, my Active Directory. And let's go ahead and just open a new prompt, and I will paste in those contents there. One thing to note that if you've extracted your Pingcastle executable into a different file path, then you'll just make sure you have to make sure you reflect that change there, as well as change your report name. Like this lab.sockfortress.local would certainly be whatever you guys' domain is. And then you can also see here that we're outputting the results to the active responses.log file, which our Wazuh agent is already collecting and sending to our manager, and is the approach that I like to make when writing anything kind of custom scripts, since our Wazuh agent is already collecting and sending these results. For any custom scripting that we want to do, I love to add to this file, and then it's a matter of just collecting or creating our new Wazuh rules. So go ahead and run the script, and when I run that, we should see it come back with no errors there. And then if I also go into check out our new active response.log file, if I scroll down to the bottom, here we do see our Pingcastle results have gone in. So that's looking good. Now let's verify our Wazuh manager is also hitting on those. So if I go into Graylog here, yep, sure enough, I see some Pingcastle stuff. Let me just filter on these so all we see are Pingcastle things. And here now we're getting all of our Pingcastle report details. So we see our score across the board for the different objects. that Pingcastle is evaluating against. We see some rationale. We see, of course, the full log and everything itself. So here we see our risk rules, and we can actually filter. Let's throw the top values for the rule description here. And here we see all of the same results that we saw within our report, right? So built-in administrator used recently, DC spooler remotely accessible. So we're getting now our Pingcastle report directly into our SIEM stack as well, which in my opinion is a nice add-on to the Pingcastle integration. Certainly, it's great they generate that HTML report. This is certainly something that's helpful, but as a SOC team, you may also want to ingest those events into the stack, and using a little custom scripting, thankfully we can achieve that. I'd recommend you guys checking out Pingcastle. It's a free and easy to use tool to use to get your current kind of security posture of your Active Directory environment, and can certainly help flag any misconfigurations or any settings that need to be tightened up. So that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I appreciate your time, and I will see you in the next one.